I definitely miss how cheap it was for vehicle registration back in the Army days. What's up, my friends? Welcome to an all-new video. I'm U.S. Army veteran ThatChrisChaos, and today we're kind of facilitating some questions I've been asked about, how it works when you basically have a car in the Army, whether it was a car that you already had and you brought it with you to your first duty station or something you later purchased. So that is the goal, to let you know how does it work for driver's license, for, vehicle registration, for just the car in general for the most part. So we're gonna kind of start that off with the topic of the driver's license. A question that I get asked is, do I need a driver's license to be able to join the Army? And the answer is no, not really. There might be a couple MOSs like 88 Mike or 31 Bravo, maybe a couple other ones, and sometimes there's even ways around that. But for the most part, no, you don't need to have a driver's license unless your recruiter tells you that it's required for your MOS. And there's not a lot. Like if you want to be an 11 Bravo, you want to be certain other MOSs, they don't care if you have a driver's license or not, but certain MOSs might care. Like I said, probably like your MPs and your truck drivers and certain other MOSs might want you to have a driver's license before you join. But I've also heard of some cases where people were able to join without a driver's license, and then they were, able to get one once they got in the Army, and some other different ways around it. I've had people ask me, does the Army help me get a driver's license if I don't have one? The answer is no as well with that one. So if you do not have a driver's license and you want to get one while in the Army, well, you just have to go through the same process you normally would as a civilian. There is no special process like for military or for Army or anything like that. You still have to go through the same process that everybody else goes through to get a driver's license, to be able to take the test and do the driving portion of it, to take the test and actually get your official license. So getting your license the same as it would be if you weren't in the Army or the military for that matter. You might also be wondering, let's say you are from California and you get stationed in, say, Fort Riley, Kansas. Do I have to get a Kansas driver's license? Or if I'm stationed in Kansas and then I get, reassigned to maybe Fort Hood, Texas, do I have to then switch from my Kansas driver's license to my Texas driver's license? Answer with that, no. So it makes it very easy to maintain a driver's license in the Army. If, in like my situation, right, the entire time I was in the Army, had a California driver's license. I just renewed it when it became time to renew it. You still have to renew it. You can't let it expire if you want to keep it, but I didn't have to go and get like a Kansas one or a Colorado driver's license or anything like that. So I went from California as my home of record, and then my first duty station was Kansas, still had a California driver's license. I then went to Korea, and of course I don't have to get like a Korean driver's license or anything like that. I wasn't even driving cars anyways when I was over there, but still had the California driver's license. And then when I went to my next duty assignment, which was in Colorado, I didn't have to get a Colorado driver's license, I still had the California one. So you can maintain the same driver's license for where your home of record is. If you want to switch, you can switch if you really want to, right? But if you are from a specific state, you can continue just to renew that driver's license and still use that license even though you're in a different state and operating a motor vehicle. Because you're military, you have that exemption. So it makes it nice. You can just either renew online. I used to kind of renew my driver's license when I would go home on leave, on vacation or whatever, that we could update the photo. But otherwise, you just keep that, driver's license valid and you're good to go. Now, once you get out of the military, then yeah, you have to get that driver's license for that state. If you're gonna stay in a different state, if you're gonna go back to your original home of record state, then you're fine. But like when I got out of the Army, I'm originally from California. I decided I wanted to stay in Colorado. So I think it was like the last few months of my contract, I ended up getting a Colorado driver's license since I knew I was going to be staying in Colorado. Next, let's move to vehicle registration, because you might want to know, hey, if I take my car from, again, that example, California to maybe Fort Riley, Kansas, do I need to switch over to Kansas license plates? Of course, on the civilian side, that normally would be the case, but when you're military, you don't have to do that. You can maintain the license plates from your home record. So if you were taking a vehicle from whatever state to the next state that you're assigned to, you can continue to just renew through your home of record state and keep that same license plate. There are different kind of rules with different states. There is a great article that I'll link down below in the description box if you want to see how it works for your specific state, and you can kind of see how it works. But for the most part, I think every state will allow you to keep that state one when you're even somewhere else because you're in the military. Now, if you do end up with a license plate in the state where you're stationed at, but your home of record is in a different state, there are some different incentives as like kind of discounts or things you don't have to pay to make your registration fees a lot cheaper. Those vary from state to state, but a lot of them usually have very similar kind of policies that make it to where there's certain portions of that vehicle registration that you don't pay for and ends up making it pretty cheap. Like when I was in Kansas, I had Kansas license plates because I bought the car in Kansas, so it was a lot easier just to register it in that state rather than going it back to California to register it for California license plates. So I just went ahead and registered it with Kansas license plates. But because I was a resident of California, I had certain kind of parts of that registration that didn't apply to me, so it ended up making my registration a lot cheaper than it normally would have been had I been like a Kansas resident or just someone not in the military. Another thing that kind of goes along with that is if you are deployed and your registration is going to expire while you're deployed to, let's say, a combat zone or some other kind of deployment, then that state usually waives those like late fees. They understand, hey, you're military, you want orders to a deployment, so they waive all your late fees and then you just re-register it, or renew that registration, I guess, when you come back from that deployment. It does not count for training. Like if you were in the field or you're at the National Training Center for a month and you didn't pay it during that time frame, that doesn't count. But if you're on a deployment and you weren't able to renew the registration, they will waive those late fees. I believe that's almost every state, if not every state, I'm not sure. That article that I have down below, I think mentions that for a lot of states, so you can also check that out if you're curious. Now, when you get out of the military or out of the Army, you do then have to go by local laws, right? So that probably does mean that if you're going to live in a state that you're not from and you need to switch driver's license, you're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to switch your vehicle registration to the license plates for that state, just like you would as a civilian. So be aware of that. So if you are, like in my case, from California, you get stationed in Fort Carson, Colorado, and you decide you want to stay in Colorado, well, then you need to switch over to a Colorado driver's license and then switch your registration over to Colorado license plates. But while you're currently in the military, you're good to go. Now, a few other questions that are probably related to this topic of having a car while in the Army is, where do I park my car? Well, obviously, if you're a married soldier or living off post, then you park in the local parking lot for the apartment, for that house, whatever the case is. On post housing, you have parking spaces for that house or that kind of little complex. If you're a lower ranking soldier, usually the houses aren't quite as nice and you probably park on the street. Whereas married soldiers that have maybe a larger family or get up there and rank a little bit higher, they might have a garage at their house. A lot of installations have garages, and that's usually for higher ranking people or people with larger families. So you could potentially park your vehicle inside the garage or inside the driveway. Now, if you live in the barracks, there's parking lots for the barracks. There's usually a large parking lot that you can park your car in. It's not usually assigned parking. I don't think I've seen. There might be some select locations that have assigned parking, but for the most part, it's first come, first serve. A few locations I've seen they have covered parking, but a lot of them is just a big open area, a big parking lot that you just pick a spot and park your vehicle. Then you might want to know, hey, where does my car go if I go to the field? Well, for the most part, it usually just stays in the normal spot, either in the parking lot of the barracks or at home or whatever the case is. Maybe you drive into work, you're going to the field for a week or two. You drive in, park your vehicle, at the motor pool area or whatever, and just leave your car there while you're in the field. That's usually the same for the National Training Center. The National Training Center is a longer rotation. It's a month-long one, and that's usually just the same kind of deal. Now, for deployments, it does work a little bit differently. If you are married, well, then you can possibly leave it with your spouse. Other options you can do is if you want to take it back home and leave it with family back home, you can do so. You could choose to buy a storage unit and park the vehicle inside of a storage unit. For those individuals in the barracks that don't want to, purchase a storage unit, they usually have some kind of parking lot that they're going to designate for individuals deploying. I've seen a lot of times where this is a secure location where it's like a fenced-in area. Maybe it's a motor pool that's being cleaned out that's not going to be used, or it's some other location that's maybe fenced off so that people can easily get access to your vehicle very easily. And that is like the designated area where the cars will be parked for those individuals that are not storing it themselves or leaving it somewhere else. So you have a place to put your vehicle, even if you don't have family in that area, and not just leave it in the barracks parking lot. You also don't want to do that. You don't want to just leave it in the barracks parking lot, especially if you're on a deployment, then you want to have it in a secure location. You might also be curious, well, what if I change duty stations? So if you're going, let's say, from Fort Riley, Kansas to Fort Carson, or maybe Fort Hood, Texas, whatever the case is, you have a couple options available to you to, take care of that car. You can choose to have the Army ship it for you. That is an allowed thing. Even as a single soldier, you're allowed to ship one vehicle. I think if you're married, you get 2 vehicles, I believe, but as a single soldier even, you can have that one vehicle shipped to that next location if you wish to do that. You can also choose to drive it yourself. A lot of times people just do that because they're probably going from that one duty assignment maybe back home to visit with family for a little bit before they go to the next duty assignment, and they drive there. And the Army actually reimburses you for the fuel that you would have used to go from that duty assignment to your next duty assignment. If you go from that duty assignment to home and then back to the other assignment, they don't kind of do the whole route. It's really just what it would have costed you to drive from your duty assignment that you left to the new duty assignment that you're taking on. That also goes for married soldiers as well. If they want to have the military transport all their goods to the next duty assignment, they can do that. Or they can even rent their own U-Haul truck and then tow a vehicle behind it and have someone else drive the other vehicle, like if you have 2 vehicles, and then the military reimburses you for the travel expenses. If your next duty assignment is overseas, depending on the duty assignment, most commonly, like let's say like Germany or something like that, you can usually bring one vehicle along with you. I don't know if that still applies for married individuals with two. It may just be limited to one, but you can bring that vehicle with you over to that duty assignment. Korea doesn't usually let you bring a vehicle unless they've changed some stuff, but commonly that's not usually a common one. You can bring your own vehicle, but like Germany and certain other locations, it's pretty common that you're allowed to bring a vehicle. A key thing with that is I've known a lot of people that they will buy a car in Germany. Like you can buy a BMW for fairly cheap over in Germany, and then they have to have it kind of converted to meet the specs that they need for like emissions and everything like that for the United States. And then they'll have the military ship that vehicle from Germany back to the United States, and they've gotten a BMW for much cheaper than they would have gotten back in the United States. Now, if you want to continue your viewing experience here on the Christopher Chaos channel, check out this video right here. YouTube thinks that this is the best one that you should watch, so click it if you haven't watched it already. And then my latest video, if you haven't seen that one, check that thing out. It's a great video, I imagine. Check out links down in the description for social media and everything else. I'm Christopher Chaos. Thanks for watching. See ya.